All right, I have 2 o'clock. Bob, are you still there? You didn't want
I sure am. Yes, I am.
Well, I am going to go ahead and mute the lines, and then I'll make a couple of announcements before we get started.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
Okay, well, welcome to NRCA's webinar, Working Effectively with Homeowners. Our presenter today is Bob Culp with Culps of Stratford. Culps of Stratford has been serving the roofing needs of Wisconsin homeowners, businesses, local government, and religious institutions since 1985. Bob is the founder of the company and its business development director. He works in the company with his 2 brothers, one of which is the company president, and the other specializes in the company's sheet metal design. Culps of Stratford was awarded the Small Business of the Year from the Wausau Region Chamber of Commerce last year. Bob himself has served on numerous committees within NRCA, and we always are excited to have him be involved with any projects that we have going on. I think you'll see through this webinar that Bob is really forward-thinking in developing his business and products and all the strategy of the company. So we're really excited to hear from Bob. Just a couple of housekeeping tidbits. Just so that you know, this webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to listen to it on our website later on, or if you have folks that you know who might have been involved and weren't able to make it, they would be able to purchase this webinar and listen to it later. We will be on mute for the majority of the call, but whenever Bob would like to have a Q&A session, we'll take the phone lines off of mute, and you can feel free to ask questions at that time. You will receive a survey afterwards. We would ask that you would take a couple of minutes to fill that out and send it back to us, just so we know how you felt the webinar went, and we can give Bob some feedback, and also so that we can plan webinars for the future that are beneficial to everyone. As people call in, we will mute them individually, but if you happen to hear anybody kind of type in the meantime, it's just because the muting system isn't always absolutely perfect. With that, though, I'm going to ask Bob to go ahead and introduce himself in any way that I didn't, and go ahead
And I am assuming I'm on and I'm unmuted. I did have to unmute my line, but that's I'm on, right, Amy?
On, yes. We can hear you.
Excellent. Excellent. And no, you did an excellent job of introducing me, and I appreciate the opportunity to share just a little bit of what I've learned over the years. And, you know, you go to webinars, you go to seminars, and you hear things often as you've heard before. So probably what I'll be sharing today won't be anything earth-shattering or new in any way, but sometimes if you're like I am, you need to be reminded of what works and, you know, some of the things that you may have used to do, and for some reason it fell off. So hopefully there'll be some value here, because, you know, everybody looks at it as what's in it for me, and I trust that you'll take away value from the session today. And it really, what I'm sharing here is only our way of doing things, and it's really only one way. There are a lot of successful contractors that are very successful and do things either slightly different or radically different. So if you're looking at this as the end-all, be-all, and the only way of doing things, I certainly wouldn't want to come across that way. But with that, let's jump into it. What we've done in our company is kind of standardize the processes, at least to a large extent, so that when people call our office and they work with one of our sales consultants, I'll call them consultants from here on, they get the same experience as they do with any other. In other words, they know what to expect, and then when they tell their friends and their relatives or acquaintances about our company, they'll have a set expectation, and that's, I think, something that's important in our industry. And one of the things that this weak economy has given us is the opportunity, because people are hanging on to their houses a lot longer than they used to be. That means that they're repairing things that previously they would have upgraded to another house, and at this point, that is a real opportunity for roofing contractors. And if the economy in a macro sense is a little bit weak, we can affect our own microeconomy by just getting better and smarter. And oftentimes the the initial question that people have is, you know, what's it going to cost and when can you do the job? And of course, as a consultant, as a business owner, whatever your position is, it's our job to get past those questions and actually be consultants to the people that we're working with. And that's pretty typically an easy path, providing we understand, you know, kind of some systems and processes. Again, we'll be looking at some of those. And the other thing that I've learned and known for many years, but I was reminded recently again, is that homeowners hate to be sold, but they love to buy. You know, give them what they want. They're becoming much more informed. You all know that the internet has made people into professionals, whether they think they're a doctor because they've diagnosed their latest disease, or they think they know everything about ice standing or mold or, you know, roofing choices. I know that ice standing isn't a consideration for everyone in the country, but everybody seems to have an answer. And we need to go into the experience understanding that we're not dealing with people that have lived under a rock. We're dealing with people that literally have scoured the internet oftentimes and have some good information and some misinformation. And as I mentioned about this webinar, everybody's tuned to WIIFM, What's in It for Me, and homeowners are no different. So you need to really think about your entire message and your processes going out, that it's not about you. If you go in there and talk about all the great things you've done, of course, that's an immediate turnoff. People are saying, hey, this is about me. Everybody's in the buying experience for themselves. And so the idea is to develop a lot of trust and confidence, again, by having standardized processes that work and just having an open mind to what that educated customer is bringing your way. And we're going to be talking, or there is a session coming up, I should say, on March 27th for prospecting. And so what we're not going to talk about that, how to get leads, but the idea of this is, again, the concept of referrals. If you do your job well with a homeowner, you will invariably get referrals from them. So the need to make an unforgettable and good initial impression has never been higher. And that doesn't matter if it's a phone call to your office, visit to your website, physical showroom visit, or home show. And we'll talk about each of those just a little bit more in depth, and again, some of the things that we've learned over the years that seem to work for us. If you're doing the home show, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy is going to a home show and having everybody, every booth, every other vendor up and down looking kind of half bored if it's a slow home show especially, and saying, you know, can I help you? Or people stop and look at your booth, and it's almost like the long knives are out for the attendees, and it can be like running the gauntlet. Put yourself in the shoes of the person running through. How do you like to be approached? Obviously, you know, the upper part of the slide here, professional booth and attire, pictures, videos, those things really go without saying. Have people in the booth that are not just taking names and you know, setting, or have people that really know what's going on, that are courteous, knowledgeable, and helpful. One of the things that I learned to do is say, what brought you to the show today? And I typically do that when I'm out in the aisle in front of my booth, rather than sitting in a chair behind a table, kind of looking bored. What brought you to the show today? And, you know, it could be that basement brought them to the show today, or they could say, my wife drugged me, or there's 1,000 answers that they can give to that question. But on occasion they'll say, well, I'm shopping for a new roof. That's your lead in, and then it's a matter of just asking more questions. You'll find that the professional people in any industry, whether it's a psychiatrist, I don't have any intimate knowledge with that, or a doctor, but anyone that's consultative and asking questions engenders trust and a good deal of feedback, more than you do if you're out there, again, telling all the good things you've done. If it's a showroom visit, again, if you have one, make sure it's clean and orderly. That's pretty critical. Really the same things apply as a home show. Somebody walks in your front door, you don't say, "Can I help you?" Because that really is putting up a barrier. At least it is to me, and I'm assuming it is to many others. And that's what brought you here today. And it's a much more open-ended way of approaching the initial contact. Then, of course, you can always say any of that with a smile on your face and a twinkle in your eye or a surly look. And don't underestimate the body language that you bring to the equation personally. That's incredibly important. And, of course, website contact, we don't have body language there, but you have every website has its own character. Again, be aware that homeowners are self-educated and at least have a website. I'm assuming everyone on the call has a website. That would be, I guess, the minimum place to start. But I am impressed with how many builders in our area, at least, don't have websites. And I don't know how you can attract the younger generation and keep them involved in your company in the buying process unless you are out there with an intuitive, informative website. Obviously, you want to have pictures of projects and staff and past customer referrals and any media stories that have been done, all kinds of things that you can populate your website. Again, that's not necessarily a webinar based on website content here, but it is nevertheless an important part. One of the things that we do is put email addresses and contact information out on our website, and if you're worried about phishing or spamming, you can put that email address in an image file so it can't be captured by the web crawlers and the people that come around and steal your identity or spam you. The other thing that's critical on a website is to have a proposal request submission form, we call it. That's really very paramount in websites. You need to, them, if they submit online, if they're looking for something, and you can ask a lot of questions within that. What type of roof do you have? What type of roof are you looking for? What's important to you? Don't make it too burdensome, but then, you know, when they hit click on that, the idea is to follow up right away. I mean, often this happens at night or on the weekends because that's when people have extra free time to be browsing around and thinking about their roof. But it's important to follow up right away, if you can, with an email that says, it could even be an automated email. You've requested information and a proposal will be in touch with you during X hours. Or if it's during the day and you can pick up the phone and call, of course, that is always ideal. And that has impressed a lot of people. Wow, I just hit click and now I get a call. So you get the point there. Phone calls to the office, again, should be professionally answered. You know, you call some businesses and they're hello or yeah, or any number of things like that. Again, develop a standardized system that everyone in your office answers the phone the same way. If it's one person, of course, that's easy, but something like good afternoon, Cults of Stratford, Bob helping, how may I help you? Any kind of way to just differentiate yourself from probably a majority of the other roofing contractors that would do that. And it's really a good idea. Again, different sized businesses are different. Not all people have people answering their phone right away. But if you have to have a answering machine, make sure that you check that many times a day if you're a small company. Again, you should direct those phone calls then to the consultant's extension or cell phone, worst case scenario, voicemail. One of the things that we've learned is that we need to have follow-up time frames internally established first off. In other words, you know, a call comes in to one of our consultants and he sits on it for 2 or 3 days. That's not acceptable. Within 24 hours or whatever the time frame is that you establish internally, and then the person that answers the phone or your voice message on your voicemail can be, you know, we will get back in touch with you by the end of the business day or 3 hours or whatever that internal time frame is. Make sure you communicate that to the potential client. And then the sales consultant can set up an appointment right away, and you're off to the races. Another thing that is important, and we'll talk a number of slides here about setting expectations with the homeowner. And the question is, do you do a one-stop or two-stop visit? And neither one is correct or incorrect. I mean, I've done them where I go out once, I measure the roof and the client, and I propose the project right there. I've also done two-stop visits where it's you go out roof and client, and then you go to the where you prepare the proposal and you put it out. But you need to decide that, but you need to also communicate that with the homeowner right away. Look, I'm going to be coming out, doing a one-stop proposal. We'll have a proposal before I leave, or I come out, I'll take a look at your project, decide with you what makes sense, and then do a proposal that's generated in the office and set another meeting. Again, if you do a one-stop proposal, it would be best to have the same quality of customized proposal, something that's printed, bound, with applicable brochures, all the information that you want. We'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later. If we could just unmute, I've talked for about 15 minutes here. Is there any questions that come right off the top of anyone's head? We'll just allow that for a half a minute or so, if you would.
The leader has unmuted your line.
No questions? I'm fine with that. We can go on. So you have to jump quick.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
I've known people that, sales consultants at other roofing companies, that require all decision makers to be present at the first meeting or both. Again, for us, that's not necessarily a requirement. It's always ideal if you have all decision makers there. And that's the important thing is that you decide internally how that's done and then communicate that to the homeowner, because you don't want to go out there and the one spouse isn't there and you communicate somehow displeasure that they weren't there. Again, it's a matter of setting that expectation right up front. And one of the things I've learned, again, is to not get into too many specifics of the project at this point. And this is still not a visit. This isn't actually being out. This is on the phone. Oftentimes you'll be asked, how do you do this? How do you do that? And if many people are like I am, I'm a person that needs to see something before I can understand it. I don't understand very well what's going on over the phone when somebody's trying to describe a complex roof shape. And so I'll typically say something like, when I get out there, we'll decide what will work best once I look at your project. The important takeaway that I think from there is that we'll decide together. That word track has been just huge from my perspective, because at that point you're bringing them into a part of the decision. And do make note at the point of, at this point you're still in your office or truck or wherever, you're writing down the lead information, the basic information the homeowner has, and also making a note of the things that are important to the homeowner, even what seems to you to be possibly little things, because you'll be bringing that information up later and just developing a lot of credibility with that person. Another thing that has a lot of debate in the industry is pre-qualifying during the initial contact. A number of years ago, when the housing boom was going and everyone had a ton of leads, the thought was, hey, I've got 100 leads, can't follow up on more than 30 of them, so I'll throw 70 of them away in a random way, or I'll try to pre-qualify. And again, that's neither good or bad. It's a matter of you deciding if you want to do that. One of the ways that we tend to pre-qualify is if you need the project done next week and there's no way that our production people can get there, you tell people that right up front. And the other thing is always, you know, I have a roof that's this big, how much will it cost? Well, if you price it over the phone, that may work for you, but we try to resist that urge. Of course, we do it politely as we can. And the other demographic that we've had a difficult time in working with is when people are selling their house in a couple of months and their roof has been shot for a couple of years and they obviously haven't had funds to do it. You may not be the roofing contractor, but then again, you might be. So you decide internally what your customer looks like, and be sure not to even alienate the ones that you pre-qualify and throw away, because, again, they've got friends, they've got relatives, they've got acquaintances that they'll be talking to. So be sure not to alienate the potential client. This piece, to me, sending a confirmation email, is probably the most important part of before you ever meet the client. You'll, if you do as I do, you get their email address, and if they don't have an email, then that's not a problem. You'll always, what I say is I find someone that I love that's close to me that doesn't have an email or a computer, and I say, well, that's fine, so-and-so, you know, that I love and respect doesn't have email either. So you kind of blow it off that way, or not blow it off, but you kind of give the idea that that doesn't make them any less of a person. Again, you'll find your own way to do that. But sending a confirmation email with the date and time is incredibly important. And don't call it an appointment. Call it a get-together, because as you see on the screen, their appointments are for doctors, get-togethers are for friends. You want to be thinking in terms of together, because that's what engenders that trust along the way. One of the really neat things about an email is that it can include, obviously, links to websites, specific pages with personalized topics of interest. You can have all kinds of video, print explanation of what to expect next if you want to. It needs to include the contact information of the consultant that the get-together will be with. It's one of the things that we're probably a little bit weaker on here internally, with every sales consultant having exactly the same process, because on occasion we'll field a call from a homeowner that says, so-and-so contacted me, but I don't remember who it is. And then that puts a lot of extra stress on our office staff, and it makes us look bad to the person that calls in. So that's why this is critical, because they're calling in. Oftentimes, if they're calling in, you're setting that appointment. Now they have a business card, preferably a picture business card, something that you send out to people. The reason I think that's important is because people are visual, and if you're showing up on their doorstep and they already know what you look like, it really helps in the sale. And then it should go without saying, show up on time. And probably every other part of the country is different than ours, but if I had $1 for every time I was asked, or I was commended for showing up on time because none of the other roofing contractors did, I would be able to have a real nice meal somewhere. And call if you're more than 5 minutes late. In fact, there's been times when I got to tell you that I was 6 minutes late. Sometimes my own doing, sometimes not, but I would call 5 minutes beforehand and say I'm going to be 5 or 6 or 8 minutes late. You don't want to do that as a strategy. You want to try to show up on time, but it's not a bad thing if you're a couple minutes late, but you need to call if you are. And a whole lot of jobs that we have personally won because of that single issue. Obviously, it goes without saying, make sure your vehicle is clean and you've got good logos on it. Nothing worse than having someone pull up with floppy fenders and no logo, and you don't know who this guy is, and he's got a ladder on his truck. Maybe I called him, maybe I didn't. But again, it's setting expectations, and most of the selling really is done at this point. One of the other aspects of a measure call, as we call it internally, is that you're measuring the roof, but more importantly, you're really measuring the client. You want to ask a lot of questions, not in an interrogating way, but in a relaxed way as you're walking around the house. I have one there, Think Columbo, the Detective Columbo, kind of grumpy, so you don't necessarily want to copy that piece of him with the attire and the trench coat and the like, but just walk around and ask questions related to the roof, but to other things you're seeing as well. You're taking note of the property. Now, you could just drive up, put your ladder up on the roof, jump up on the roof and measure and do the things that you're going to do, and that may work for you, but I find that walking all the way around the house first with the homeowner gives a chance to bond before you ever get up there and understand what their objectives are and what they're looking to solve. And if you're doing that, one of the things that is disconcerting to me is when somebody is always just taking notes of everything you say. So you should, and this is a good thing to make notes and take notes, but you should ask for permission before you do that. Make notes of what you're saying. That way, again, you're engaging them and you're getting their permission and their buy-in. You're getting them typically to say yes. Most homeowners aren't just looking for basic property protection, but few of them know that they're looking for something more. Sometimes it's a matter of educating, and it's our job to find out what their real objectives are. And it's possible that they really don't know what they're looking for themselves, that they don't know what's available. Maybe they're thinking still 3-tab shingles, although in our market, 3-tab shingles nobody's putting them on anymore. Again, you decide what your hot button or topic is that you want to talk about, but typically they don't know about all of the products and choices that are available out there. And don't assume that you know why the owner is re-roofing. But one of the first questions I ask when I come out, doesn't matter if the roof is in perfect shape and it's 6 years old, like we re-roofed a house earlier this year, or if the shingles are shot and have been shot for 10 years already, and they should have replaced it 10 years ago. The question is, why are you doing this now? What makes this the time to do it? Could be that they got an income tax return, could be that they're looking to sell, could be any number of things. Often it uncovers pain in the homeowner. Hey, we've got a roof leak around the chimney, we've got to fix it, my wife's going to be upset at me if I don't, or my husband is, any number of things that come up there. And some homeowners have no physical or technical reason to re-roof. Maybe they're looking at changing color. Maybe they're simply looking to upgrade style, or they just have a super phobia about any roof leaks that they want it taken care of. So again, don't assume you know why the owner is re-roofing. And if they've got their mind set on re-roofing, then certainly accommodate that. They want to buy and not be sold. Another question is ask, what do you like or dislike about your roof now? Could be leaks, ice damming, wind-driven rain. Maybe they like the fact that it's paid for. Again, these are all things that come out if you ask relatively open-ended questions. And another question I learned to ask, because we have a lot of different product offerings with a lot of different warranty longevity issues. We do metal roofing, we do asphalt shingle roofing. How committed are you to this house? You want to know how much that person is willing to put into it. It's really another way of asking about durability and longevity and warranty and those kinds of things. So, many times you'll hear things like, well, we're going to be here till they take us out 10 toes up, or, until the kids get out of high school or college or whatever it is that they're involved with, or can't wait to get out of this neighborhood, or any number of things. But that's one way of asking that question. You can also ask how important is the environment? And this may be the kind of thing that actually comes up when you drive in and you see a bumper sticker or a political sign out front. You may have some indicator as to that. You can ask, you can catch those kind of cues from many different things. But that may mean that there's a recycling opportunity, or recycled content in a product means a lot, or that they're looking for durability. Again, just be very, very aware. Again, think Columbo as you're out there. And another question is, how have you seen anything else, another roof that you like? Sometimes they'll say, hey, my neighbor's roof is just fine. No, I'm looking for just keep the water out. It shows how property aware they are. You run into some people who literally drive up and down the street for 2 months before they call you, looking at all kinds of different roofs, and they've got their mind made up as to what would work perfectly. So again, you want to know that going in. Are they wanting to make a statement with their roof? If it's a big roof exposure and they drive in the driveway and they see 60% roof, well, is that important to them? Do they want people to say, wow, when they drive in, or is it just important to keep the thing from leaking? And if you're walking around and, of course, you're noticing the nice landscaping out all over the place, you want to certainly ask, how would you like us to protect this? And that will, again, be, in my way of thinking, a better approach than saying, you've got excellent landscaping, you compliment the landscaping, but then say, we would do this, and we would do this, and we would do this. Because if you are telling them what you will do right away, you don't give them the chance to tell you what other people said they would do, and also what is very important to them about the landscape. So ask the question rather than say, this is what we're going to do. And another way of asking, what do others suggest? That tells you a number of things. It tells you if somebody else is proposing the project. It can give you insight into any number of different things. And they can on occasion, say, well, this other guy came out and he was saying this and this, and you can sense that they're not comfortable with it. And on the other hand, they could be totally comfortable with it and share that with you, but the question would always be then, are you comfortable with that? Not bad-mouthing any other roofing contractor. I don't think that's ever an appropriate thing, no matter how bad they are. It's a matter of saying, are you comfortable with that? And continue to draw the person out and ask how you make this decision. That tells you a ton of things. Tells you what's important to them. If it's price or schedule, hey, I have to get it done before my kid's prom party or something. Or I'm going to make the decision based on the lowest price. Or again, I put 3 of the many, many answers to questions that you could have on there. Who besides yourself is helping you with this decision? Most often it's the spouse, but one of the things that I've learned is that everybody has a brother-in-law in another state who's a roofing contractor. They've already been on the phone with him, and he's telling them this and that, and that's all good and appropriate, but or it could be a father or pardon me, a son or daughter, any number of things. But it's good to know that up front. It's good for a couple of reasons. One is if you want all decision makers to be present, how's that going to work if it's somebody from out of state? If it's a spouse, then you have to know about work schedules and try to communicate that. And as you know all the time, you're putting all of this into your head for the next question or the next step. That's the question I haven't always asked, but it's always been fun to ask when I have is, what have you budgeted for this improvement? Sometimes you get a total deer-in-the-headlights look that says, I really don't have a clue. Other times you'll actually get somebody that says, well, I've got 4 proposals, and one is X and the other is X and the other 2 are Y. And that, again, just gives you some insight. If you're the first person in, oftentimes you really don't know, but it could also bring out the fact that maybe they have construction experience. Maybe they're, if you didn't ferret that out with your earlier questions, maybe they work for a general contractor somewhere that you weren't aware of, and they kind of know what new construction projects go for. So, again, you really find a lot out by asking that type of question. Is there anything else that's important to you that we haven't talked about? That gives you insight into neighbors, shift work, parties, as we had mentioned before, duration of project. This project has to be done in a day. I saw the storm that went through next door. The person could say, the hailstorm hit that house, and they brought in 13 roofers, and they did it all in a day. Well, if that's the important thing, then of course you have more questions to ask. But this is kind of a very, very open-ended question that just says, what else should I know about this? And another question is, if you had a magic wand, how would this project get done? Everybody has their dream scenario of how the work could be done. It could be anything from, well, you know, somebody would come in and never touch my lawn because my lawn is important to me, or again, any number of things that can come out of this type of question. Let's open it up just a second for any questions coming in real quick.
The leader has unmuted your line.
Are there any questions or input? We will have a question and answer session at the end, so save them for that time, and let's continue on then.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
All this talk about the roofing, and we still haven't seen the roof. And the process involved in getting to that, to me, is as important as anything, which is why we spent all that kind of time on it. But then, of course, you have the property inspection. That's pretty straightforward, and I'm certain I'm talking to a bunch of seasoned roofers, roofing contractors, and roofing consultants. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but obviously you need to do a thorough investigation. You need to make sure that you understand the scope of the project. And at this point, if you're doing a one-stop, of course, you'd have samples and literature. I personally wait until my follow-up. I always do a two-stop process, and I have samples and literature at that point. I may have just enough to kind of whet their consciousness, but typically I wait until afterward to do any of that. Then set expectations for a follow-up with a proposal. You know, ask something like, hey, when can we get together again to go over everything we discussed? And it'll likely take, you fill in the blank according to your style, but to do that. That way they know that it's not going to be just you drive in the driveway, you know, kind of do what the paper boy does with the paper and fling the proposal on the front porch. You have an expectation that's set. And obviously resist the urge, this is internal to us, if the homeowner asks you just to email or drop it, email the proposal, drop it in the mail. That especially if you've only met with one of the decision makers, we find that our closing ratio and our effectiveness and our ability to please the customer, which is what it's really all about, goes way down if we just drop a proposal in the mail. There are times when it can't be avoided, but that second face-to-face to us is always very important. Then, of course, you would never want to do just a, back of the business card, or worse yet, scrap of paper that you find in your truck and scrawl a price on it. Too often that's what people see as a proposal, and it really isn't. Again, the key words on this slide are, can we get together? It's about getting together and meeting that homeowner's expectations and being probably the most professional person that they will work with in this type of transaction. Again, if you require everybody to be present, that is something that you will want to set that expectation. You'll set the schedule for the proposal presentation, and the same things will apply as in the original schedule setting, where you send out the confirmation email of the get-together, you have the on-time follow-through, and do all of that. And again, that's just really a nice touch. Plus the fact that after you left and they know how professional you were, and then you send another email to them, they're like, they thought about something that they should have asked you, or they have another insight that they want to give you, and that just gives them the total freedom to get right back with you, and just establishes that communication and that get-together piece. Then the proposals. I don't call them a quote. We don't bid projects. That's internal language we've expunged from our concept. When a homeowner calls and says, I want a quote for redoing a roof or an estimate, internally I cringe. Of course, externally you don't, because you don't want to put the customer off, but you work into your words whatever works for you, but we say we'll put a customized proposal together that's specific to your project. And what that does is it's an effective silent salesperson. It works, while you're out there meeting with the homeowner during your follow-up call, but it also works if they don't make a decision right then. And we're not going to talk about hard, fast sales techniques that twist people's arms until they buy, because to me that's not the way I buy, and I would have a hard time teaching how to do that. But this is something that can be left and is so much better than any of your competitors that people look at it and say, wow, I've got the choice between a scrap of paper the guy found in his truck and scroll the price on versus something that has a very detailed scope of work, including the contingencies, all of the manufacturer's brochures, code of conduct, all the documentation, warranties, project lists, prices. We don't put the price on the first page just because we want to have, again, we'll talk about this in a bit, but have a time to just follow up with the homeowner and make sure that that the scope of work is reiterated. When you get back for the follow-up presentation, it's always best to get an invitation to the house to sit down. Obviously, you want to dress appropriately and professionally. On the way in the door, it doesn't matter if the place looks like a total mess and the floor is dirty. I'll ask, are you shoes off kind of people? Just, again, showing respect there. Be relaxed, be yourself, take charge of the situation. One of the ways that I've learned to do that is often if you're sitting at a kitchen table, you'll get the end position and you'll have, the spouses on either side of you. Well, and that's fine. If you can live with that, that's okay. But I find that they tend to communicate with eye contact across, and you've been married for a while, eye contact can tell you an awful lot. So it's also difficult then to share the proposal. We still do a print proposal. There are many people who would take an iPad, and that's all appropriate. Again, find what makes sense, but be yourself, be relaxed, continue the dialogue. It's like you just left from the measure call, and now you're back, and you're picking up the friendship. You want to match the behavioral style of the homeowners. If they talk slowly back. If they talk quickly back, if you can. If they're cross legs, you cross legs. There's a whole behavioral style and body language thing that if you learn to match, you will do very well with homeowners. Talk to each party equally, especially if you have a husband and wife, male, female. There's nothing more disconcerting to a lady, and I had a lady actually tell me that she made the decision to work with us because I addressed them both equally. So before the proposal is open, just ask, is there anything else you thought about on your project that we haven't discussed before? Often the homeowner will say, well, no, what's the bottom line? And again, find your own style. Can we talk about price after we've gone over the scope of work? I just want to make sure I understood what we talked about and that I understood you correctly last time I was out. You can go over the proposal either line item by line item and shift the high points and focus on their hot button issues. Again, a well-constructed proposal should be several pages long. We talked already about body language and making sure that you read the homeowner. If it looks like you're boring them, by all means, do something different. If it looks like they're wanting to buy, whip out the pen and hand it to them. But in other words, understand what your homeowner is doing. Give good, better, best options that have been discussed. And if you get to the price page, this was a hard one for me, but read the dollar amount for the project out loud. Sometimes as contractors, we tend to apologize for price, and one way to show that we're not ashamed of the price is to actually verbalize it. Because when we hear ourselves say it and you get comfortable with saying that, there's almost a sense of pride of this is how much this project really costs to do. Again, we said before we won't go over the various closes and tactics to get the decision on the spot, but it is something that you'll find your own style here. You ask when will you be making the decision? The answer is right away. Then When can you do the project? That's the best of all possible scenarios. And again, you whip out the pen, you let it happen, you decide colors. They haven't already been decided, you do all of that. If they say you need to get other proposals, again, don't say, well, everybody else out there does terrible work and we're the only ones that are doing a good job. There's nothing that is quicker to close the door for a customer than that. On occasion there are people that buy that, but what I do is I tell homeowners that I would do that. If I were in your shoes, I would have to do that. Why not? You're talking a big expense. And tell them what they'll find when they go out there. You're going to find some that are higher, some that are lower in price, some will have a more clear scope of work perhaps, some will maybe not be quite as clear, and just let them know that they'll find a lot of things when they're out there. And even in doing that, that is a way to establish that you know and understand the industry. And at this point, they may say, well, that sounds like a lot of work to go out. And you so establish trust that, again, they work with you at that point. Most often, we, as salespeople here, we need to think about it. And that could be just a way of them saying they don't want to tell you no. I've had that happen, and so I've asked folks, look, if I sensed it was a no by their body language or by the way they were, I always say I'm a big boy. I can take no as well as I can yes. And if you'd rather tell me that, again, this works for me. It may not work for everybody, but they'll often say, oh, no, that's not at all the case. And then they'll kind of tell you why they really would want to work with you. So you ask when would be a good time to follow up, a week, month, 2 months, 2 weeks. And after that time frame has been established for the follow-up, make sure that you get that done and get it on your calendar to do that. After you've got that done, one of three things will happen. You tell them that one of three things. So when I follow up with you in 2 weeks, you'll either say, go ahead and do the project, in which case we'll get together again and talk about the final details. You won't have made a decision, and we'll establish when to contact you next. Or you'll tell me that you chose another contractor. And then it's perfectly fine. At that point, I'll ask you why you made that choice. Not to try to change your mind, but just so I can understand how to do a better job on the next time around. Yeah, this is all done after the proposal is out, and I find that people greatly respect this. And if you want to do the market research on what you have, or your closing ratio and any number of things, this gives you just a huge insight into that. We got a couple more slides here, and then we'll open it up for questions. The consistent follow-up is really the key to success in winning sales. You set the expectation during the first contact that you'll stay in contact with them until they've made the decision and the roof is done. Not bugging them every morning when they wake up and every night before they go to bed, but it's on pre-established or established contact times with them. I've literally had projects that are 5-6 years in the hopper. Now, some contractors in markets that are very hot would say throw them away and move on to the next one, and if that works in your market, that's fine. But in our slower market, I've found that that persistent follow-up. It might be they say we'll talk about it next spring. I'll call them in April, and they'll say, boy, we just really ran into some issues. I'll talk to you. I'm not going to do it this year, and then can I give you a call in January of next year? And again, I think you get the understanding of the point here. Sometimes the decisions take months or years. That's what we just talked about. And if you're a successful roofing contractor and continue to stay in touch, you're going to be there with them long after that sale and project are complete. And again, that is the future referral source. Now, I guess we're going to unmute the phones and open it up for any questions and input.
The leader has unmuted your line.
Mr. Call.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Bob, is that your name,
yeah.
Bob?
It is, Bob.
Do you do roofing or you do anything else?
We do some windows and siding, and we also do spray foam insulation, but roofing is about 90% of our business.
Okay. Do y'all advertise all your services, or just roofing?
We do. What I actually do, my best form of advertising is actually done on an AM talk radio station, a 4-minute interactive every Friday morning with the talk show host. Other than that, we don't really do a lot of advertising. Most of our stuff comes really referrals, word of mouth, repeat customers.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Culp, you mentioned that you prefer a two-call system. What brought you to that conclusion?
Our difficulty in putting together what we deem to be a good enough customized proposal on the spot. When I say that, I'm one of 4 salespeople in our organization here, and 2 out of the 4 do a one-stop, and I do a 2-stop. I like that time in between. And again, it's just personal preference for me. That's not saying it's right or wrong.
Thank you.
And if anyone will be at the IRE next week, I'd welcome sitting down for longer and discussing anything. If I've hit any hot buttons or done anything of that sort, certainly would welcome that. And also, if you want to see some of the internal processes that we have on a one-to-one basis, I'd be willing to share those with people at your request.
Bob, I got another question for you.
How's that again?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't catch anything you said there, but.
I know about the one-stop. I grew up in the roofing industry, and my family used to have one of the largest in the territory. But, they pounded on me. Hey, you're not going to get it unless you do a one-stop close. And, I don't even really, you let the customer qualify themselves through questions. But how many leads can you keep up with doing a 2-stop close? I mean, it seems like when I do that, let me type it up and get back with you and put a price. Seems like that's a lot of work. I mean, that's what I got to do a lot of the times. But
well, and that is, yeah, and that is the issue. You cut to some of the time. I personally sold residential and commercial. I'm not just strictly residential, but I sold a little over $3 million personally last year, and probably did about 350 proposals. So that's a pretty grueling pace, but and one-stop definitely has an advantage there.
How many consultants do y'all have out in the field for residential?
We don't make a differentiation between residential and commercial. We do both, and our consultants do both, but we have 4 total.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bob, I got a question for you.
Sure.
I'm new to roofing. How do you determine how many layers of shingles there are, or put down?
You can do it a number of ways. It depends on the area. In our area, oftentimes you'll see evidence of it at the roof edge, or you get up there with the homeowner's permission and lift a tab or two and just try to figure it out. What our proposal does is actually have what our assumption is. We assume that there are 2 layers of existing, and that's what we talk, or 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is. But then that if additional layers are uncovered, we would do a change order on that, which messes up the crew schedule, but at least it sets the expectation with the homeowner that given our best estimate, we've got 2 layers. If you find 3, hey, we need to talk about that before we just tear it off and and either eat it or build an extra for it.
So you'll qualify your proposal. You'll minimize your exposure. You'll say this estimate is good for up to 2 layers of shingles.
What we do is we say it's assumed that if we choose either 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever our best guesstimate is, but yes, we put it in there, and the wording is such that there's no misunderstanding with that. then the next line item is if there's additional layers found, we'll stop the boat and get a change order that you will approve or an additional work order that you will approve prior to proceeding. So at the end of the day, the price that you will pay is the price that we've agreed on either initially or along the way. Love the questions. Any others? I didn't talk much about the technical aspect, and I appreciate these technical questions. So.
Oh, God, let's see.
Mr. Culp, the description that you took us through of your sales cycle or what I'll call a sales system is very similar to what I would call the Sandler sales system. Getting those folks to understand and open up. They have a saying called, if you're telling, you're not selling, that type of thing. But
sure.
There's a balance between establishing yourself as the expert and spilling your candy in the lobby. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you guys protect that, or is it just the two-call system?
Well, and that's part of it. We were actually did Sandler training here, and I can't speak highly enough of what it's done for our organization. And seeing as how the NRCA doesn't have a specific person that they bless for training, how do you differentiate between? I think you do it from just the professionalism that you show in the sales process. If anybody puts two and two together, they'll realize that you're also very professional in your understanding of the industry. To me, that's what always comes out from homeowners. You probably have insight in that that's better than what I just gave.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the slides that you showed through this seminar, are they going to be available to us?
Michelle, Amy, I believe you guys are still on the line. Yes, they will be, and I don't know how that works internally. But
Yes, we are still here. And a survey that I mentioned earlier that will go out will have the PowerPoint attached. So you'll have everything that Bob spoke about today. And again, just as a reminder to anybody who's still on the line, Bob did invite you to get in touch with him personally if you want to have a longer conversation. And we would like to thank you for tuning in today, and also thanks, Bob, for spending your time with us today.
my pleasure, and go easy on the surveys. I like honest feedback, so please do that. But I appreciate everyone's time being online.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Bob.